tonight on the Final Play.
And now Breeze to the end zone. What a catch.
And Joe Burrow, I mean, he's got that killer instinct.
Football games looked more like track meets for the Saints and LSU this weekend. We're recapping a pair of dominant blowouts and looking ahead to the national championship and NFC playoffs.
14-2 the last 2 years on the road. I think this team can play on the road.
Saints needed the Seahawks win late tonight to get a first-round bye. Marshawn Lynch doing his part with a touchdown to bring the game within 5 points, but the Niners respond right away with a Raheem Mostert score to restore the 2-score lead. The Seahawks disappoint New Orleans tonight as they fall at home 26-21. So, taking a look at the standings and the matchups for the next round of the playoffs, the Saints will play in the wild card round as the 3 seed. They will host the Minnesota Vikings, who are the 6 seed. The Seahawks, meanwhile, fall from potentially winning their NFC West division. Instead, they will play on the road and take on the Philadelphia Eagles in Philly. These times are to be announced. We'll know a little bit later on in tonight's show. Welcome in to the Final Play. I am your host, Chris Hagan. Tonight, the Saints put up an absolutely dominant performance this afternoon against the Carolina Panthers, winning 42-10. Juan Kincaid starts our coverage from the Queen City, Charlotte.
A regular season finale on the home field of a 5-10 Carolina Panthers team was supposed to be an easy win for the New Orleans Saints, and it was. On a dreary day in Charlotte, the Saints' focus was crystal clear.
You just find yourself, after you've done this long enough, to focus on the things you can control. We wanted to get our 13th win. That's hard to do.
But the Saints made it look oh so easy to do today, scoring touchdowns on 2 of their first 3 drives. And it was Alvin Kamara putting the finishing touches on both drives.
We tried to focus really on playing our best game. In really each of these last, call it the last quarter of the season, really preparing to play playoff football. And I thought we started fast, so that was encouraging.
And as fast a start as the Saints offense had, the defense didn't give the Panthers any room to roam either.
The way we won this game, we're making a statement.
Carolina's offense was running on bad gas. Quarterback Will Greer didn't last through the half. The Saints' front four was relentless. Hello, Cam Jordan with the sack. And the pieced-together secondary was as solid as a rock and opportunistic. How about A.J. Klein with the pick 6?
A.J. runs right through the pass, and it's a pick 6.
Anytime you lose a franchise quarterback, they're missing Cam Newton. Their leadership in terms of Ron Rivera is gone. This puts it on what we can take advantage of, and I feel like we went out there and did exactly what we were supposed to do.
This was as dominant and one-sided a game that we've seen from the Saints this season. Almost comical, really. Kind of like Jared Cook's one-handed touchdown catch.
Man, that is unbelievable.
When I was running the route, I didn't expect it to be that far back shoulder. I thought it was just going to be kind of right off his ear. And I just went up for it and just made a grab. As soon as it touched my hand, I squeezed it and tucked it.
The Saints led 35-3 at the half against the Carolina Panthers team that looked done from the opening kickoff. We were wondering how the Saints would handle a day full of expectations and hope. On the former, they stayed in the moment. Out of the locker room, more of what we got used to seeing in the first half, as Taysom Hill turned a 3rd and 7 into a 45-yard score. On the latter, the hope that they'd get help in both Detroit and Seattle. Well, they didn't worry about that because the way this team has been playing of late, there's no field in the NFL that they can't win a playoff game on.
You can't depend on nobody else in this league. You got to depend on the guys in this locker room, and you got to fight for the guys in this locker room. So it's just time to go to work, man. It's a different type of season now.
For us to come on the road and win the way we have, I think the last 2 weeks, I think it says a lot about the team. Understanding that, good chance we have to go on the road in the playoffs, right, and do the same thing. So I think it's good from a confidence perspective there.
Here with the Hall of Famer, Saints Hall of Famer Deuce McAllister, a decisive win, 42-10. What you want, maybe not what you expected, but a good game for the Saints.
I think it's what you expected as well. Okay. I think you'd come out, you thought that you would come out and dominate really early, and that put all the pressure on, Carolina, and they just couldn't respond. I mean, it really started with those first couple of opening drives for the Saints. They were able to go down, and it was +8, +10, +12, +14, and a lot of bodies got involved as far as from the offensive side, and so that definitely helped you accomplish what you wanted to do from an offensive side. And they were able to really hit Will Greer and pretty much got him out of the game early. I mean, the first hit, Kiko Alonso, a big-time hit, on him. And, you saw his first 2 passes sail. And so that's pretty much what you wanted, and at the end of the day, you didn't have any guys that got banged up too much. You had pulled a couple guys late there, but took care of your business.
I was going to say, when you look at the defensive side of the ball, and that's what we were talking about earlier on Tailgate, is that you got a patchwork defense back then at secondary, but they played as well as you could have ever expected them to play.
Well, it was all short passes. I mean, it was really dink and dunk, and
everything in front of you.
Kept everything in front of you. And from a defensive standpoint, though, you still created 3 turnovers. And I am really truly impressed with the Saints offense overall. 8 turnovers.
That's crazy.
The whole year.
NFL
and so,
record.
That's just doing an outstanding job. A couple games were like this where you had the rain and weather, and you just took care of the football. And so, defensively, if you can continue to get some of those healthy guys back, you got Kiko Alonso back. You were out 3 of your starters. We'll see. But, the Saints looks really good right now.
Saints have scored 30 points for the 11th time this year. That's an NFL. That's the highest in the NFL. But the 4th straight game with 30-plus points of this offense. Drew Brees has been talking weeks and weeks about being an ascending football team. Offensively speaking, they certainly are.
Well, 6 out of his last 7.
Yeah,
they've scored 34 points. The only clunker there was against Atlanta, Thanksgiving night. But, I mean, outside of that, you've been a dominant offense. And so if that's the team that you're going to get going into the playoffs, you like your chances, because the one thing that you feel like, hey, look, we know we can run the football. We know we can pass the football. That travels. And when you talk about playoff football, those are the things that you're going to have to be able to do. Can you run the football? Can you get stops defensively? And they're showing that they can.
Sean Payton's birthday, his birthday present, as he said at the end of the game, was that defensive pass interference call that they challenged, and they finally won one.
They definitely won one, and, it was interesting because the referee that was right under one of the closest guys to it, he reached for his flag. He never threw it. And so after the challenge,
it's like an no call all over again.
We're just looking, and, you're fortunate that it does get changed. And so for the Saints, they finally win one. Maybe that's the little swag that you need as you go into the playoff.
Couple things. Alvin Kamara, 2 touchdowns again today, the first 2 of the game. Again, we're seeing him getting better and better and healthier as we get to the playoffs.
Back-to-back weeks where he scores 2 touchdowns, and, I mean, it was really easy. He probably could have scored another one if he had played in the 4th quarter. He didn't play at all, and so offensively they really let off of him. You end up scoring 1 touchdown with the ones in there, but outside of that, you did exactly what you needed to do.
Back-to-back season for this team, 13-3 records. We go back to 14 through 16, 7-9. Again, we talk about a football team that didn't hit rock bottom, but they got down really low, and you wonder how they would bounce back after the last 2 years, difficult defeats in the playoffs. This team is looking different, like they've learned from those lessons and are carrying that as kind of a bit of a push into the playoffs.
First time in Saints history that you've, back-to-back 13-win season, and so, and you go in that locker room, they're sad. And it's because they possibly won't get a bye. And so to repeat what you did last year with that group, with the injuries that you've suffered, man, that's a special group. And so for them, I think they know what's at stake. They know what's at stake, what you have to accomplish to be able to get to where you want to go. And so it's not taking anything for granted. It's going out there and just playing. And, this may be the last week that you have as far as a group. So don't think of it and take it for advantage, because nothing is really guaranteed after this point.
A couple more questions for you. This team looks like a team that can go anywhere and win a playoff game. They're built to play outdoors like this. Drew Brees pointed out, last 10 years, we've won more games than almost anybody in the league on the road. This seems like a team that is built to do good things, great things in these playoffs, anywhere it happens.
7-1 this year, regular season. 7-1 last year. 14-2 the last 2 years on the road. I think this team can play on the road.
Seattle loses to San Francisco, so San Fran's won. Saints will be at home for 1 game and then go on the road. But you still like this team's chances no matter how many games they get to play at home.
You have to win your first home playoff game, that wild card game. Then you would have to travel. I think this team is built to go into Green Bay and or San Francisco and be able to win a divisional playoff game.
And Sean Payton kept reiterating here in Carolina to control what you can control. He will continue to speak that way going forward in the playoffs. It's Deuce McAllister, Saints Hall of Famer. Thank you, Deuce.
Thank you.
Thank you, Juan and Deuce. Now's a fine time to remind you about our Monday schedule with Deuce. It's an 8 a.m. start with the Black and Gold Rewind. He joins the 2-minute drill at 9 p.m. and then at 10:35, we go all in depth with analysis, film study, and more on the Black and Gold Review Show. Coming up, Jared Cook is on a tear to finish the season. Sean Fazan looks at the big impacts he's having, even if he's not always filling up the stat sheet. In a weekend full of thrilling touchdown catches, Jared Cook takes the cake with this one-handed stab that put the Saints up 35-0 late in the first half. The first 4 games of Cook's tenure in New Orleans were scoreless, but since then, he scored 9 times in 10 games. Sean Fazan has more on Mr. Big Play.
For Saints tight end Jared Cook, it's quality over quantity. Cook doesn't have a high volume of receptions this season. The ones he does have always seem to be big plays. Sunday was the latest example. Cook only had 2 catches. His first went for a first down, but his second was a one-handed touchdown from 37 yards out.
Eric Reed just kind of stayed inside of me, and he kind of played my back hip a little bit, so Drew just hit him with a back shoulder. And when I was running the route, I didn't expect it to be that far back shoulder. I thought it was just going to be kind of right off his ear, and I just went up for it and just made a grab. As soon as it touched my hand, I squeezed it and tucked it.
Last week in Tennessee, Cook had 2 touchdowns off 3 receptions. Against the 49ers a few weeks back, he had 2 catches for 2 touchdowns. The catch-to-score ratio has become Cook's calling card, especially in December, where he has 5 touchdowns on 11 receptions.
He's got a big catch radius. Man, I love to see how he's playing right now. And last week he had a significant game, and a few weeks back prior to him, going out of the game, he was already had 2 touchdowns. So he's a big part of what we do.
Continue to give my rapport with Drew and continue to understand what Coach Payton and Coach Dan want from me. And just understanding the situations on different personnels and things that they put out there in the game. So it's just all about work.
For the season, Cook has 43 receptions and averages nearly 16.4 yards per catch. But his December has been red hot. Not only does he have those 5 touchdowns, he's also averaging a remarkable 22 yards per catch. Cook is playing his best football at the best possible time. Chris?
Coming up, we'll move to the college game where LSU punched their ticket to the national championship by putting up historic numbers despite Steve Ensminger's tragic day. Whether you're an LSU fan, Saints fan, or just sports fan in general, we'll all miss local reporter Carly McCord, who died in Saturday morning's plane crash in Lafayette. She was always a beacon of positivity and a mainstay of Saints and Pelicans home games that brought the crowd to life. McCord was 30 years old.
Fox 8's Final Play is sponsored by your local Southern Quality Ford dealer. You're watching the Final Play.
We're living in a day and age where an LSU quarterback threw 7 first-half touchdowns in a playoff game, and you weren't overly surprised. That's how good Joe Burrow's been this season, from the opener against Georgia Southern, where LSU scored 55, to facing the 4th-ranked team in the country and putting up 63. Time and time again, the Tigers prove that no defense is safe when Burrow's in command. Garland Gillen has more from Atlanta, where the Tigers won their 14th game of the season in very impressive fashion.
College football semifinal matchup. 2 of the best teams in the country on display. These games are supposed to be competitive. Well, not this one. LSU frustrated Jalen Hurts all night, and Joe Burrow torched the Sooners with 7 touchdown passes.
We go into every game thinking nobody can stop us, and that's the way we think. We think we need to score every time we touch the ball, and if we don't, then we're still kind of chasing that perfect game. It's always something to get better at, and today was a lot of fun, but still room to improve.
Burrow is yet to play that so-called perfect game, but his performance in Atlanta was close as ever to perfection.
I trust my guys. I trust them enough to throw 50-50 balls up to them, and they're going to go make a play for me. So I got great people around me, and that's why we've been so successful. We have trust in each other.
To see what those guys are doing out on the field, and me being a football fan, I'm kind of a fan. I'm like, hey, go ahead, guys, way to go, man. It's incredible what this coaching staff has done, what these players have done, the connection that they have with the receivers, the protection on the offensive line. I've been a part of some good football teams, but I've never been a part of an offense like this.
Joe's a tremendous quarterback, and of course, he won the Heisman, so everybody knows what he can do. So just coming out here and then scoring 7 touchdowns, that's just crazy.
When I saw it on the Jumbotron, I was surprised. That was probably the first time I've ever been surprised of what has something Joe did this season. That's crazy, man. That's 7 touchdowns and a half. That's like Madden numbers, Madden stats. So that was crazy for sure.
Now LSU faces Clemson on a so-called neutral field at the Superdome for the national championship.
It's a blessing to be going back to New Orleans and playing for the national championship. I mean, I've been dreaming about that since I was a little kid. So just now being in this situation, going into the game, I mean, it's just exciting, and we want to come out with a win.
Great story. Obviously it's going to be a great day. It's going to be a purple and gold crowd in that Superdome. The state of Louisiana is going to be on fire.
All right, we're now joined by Brody Miller of The Athletic. Total domination, Brody. Where do you even start with how dominant this offense was? It could do no wrong in the first half.
Absolutely. I mean, this was an Oklahoma team that everyone questioned their defense, right? And you wonder if they deserve to be there. And then LSU made that statement very clear, very, very fast. I mean, that was an all-time juggernaut performance. Joe Burrow had like 400 passing yards in the first half. It was absurd. He tied the all-time bowl record for touchdowns in a game with 7, and it was in the first half. I mean, it was as dominant as I've ever seen an offense look, and I think that shows also the importance of how important that 1-4 versus 2-3 matchup would be to be able to get that 1 seed. That's proof of it, because now LSU is going to the national title.
I asked Lloyd Cushenberry after the game, we've seen a lot of Burrow breaking records here and there. He said even he was a little shocked by him throwing 7 touchdown passes in the first half.
And some of those spots he was putting in were tight, tough spots. I mean, that ball where he was scrambling around to his right and then found, I believe, Justin Jefferson in the right corner for a touchdown, or the one he scrambled around kind of like the Georgia game a few weeks ago and then flew up to Terrace Marshall. I mean, this was another all-time Joe Burrow game. But the funny thing is we say that like every 3 weeks, and it's another great Joe Burrow game and another one. But this one, it's as helpless as the defense has looked against them, and it happens to be the number 4 team in the country.
Boy, Justin Jefferson, we probably knew he was going to be going out of the leaving after this year to go in the NFL draft. His stock just like went through the roof during this game, huh?
Yeah, it's funny. He's kind of become the one member of that receiving corps. His respect level has kind of gone down a little bit. Everyone talks about Jamar Chase. They even talk about some of Terrace Marshall's crazy catches. Justin Jefferson kind of stopped getting talked about, even though he leads the team in catches. He's one of the best receivers in LSU history statistically, and you don't really talk about him. So for today to be the guy making jump ball after jump ball, people think it was a slim kind of quickness guy, but he was winning plays physically. I mean, this was probably his best career game, and it was on the biggest stage.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire, that was the big talking point all week about his hamstring. He got a few plays in there, but Chris Curry, man, came in and filled that role nicely.
It's funny, Chris Curry was pretty consensus the 4th or 5th guy in the depth chart early in the season. Yeah, but like before the transfer, he was the 5th guy. And all of a sudden, these last few weeks, I talked to Tommy Robinson on Tuesday, and he said, everyone's assuming it's going to be the freshman, but he kept going. Chris Curry's really improved. Chris Curry's really risen up the chart. And I'm like, okay, I don't know if I believe that. But he looked dominant, and he's such a physical presence that not many teams, especially in Oklahoma, are used to facing. He runs hard, he gets forward progress. And also, what's even more jarring about that is it just shows that LSU just lost one of the best running backs in college football, and they still just put on that performance we just saw.
Total team effort on the other side of the ball also. This is the 3rd game in a row, the A&M game, the SEC championship game. I guess you put Arkansas in there too. Yeah. The defense is showing up after what happened at Ole Miss. With both these sides of the ball looking strong, this team looks almost unbeatable when they go to New Orleans.
Absolutely, yeah. And people might see the 28 points and be like, well, did they? But I mean, if you watch that game, when you're in an up-tempo game like this, the points are going to come. But that defense looked unstoppable those first 2 drives. They embarrassed Oklahoma. They got pressure on Hurts. They stuffed the run for a while. They controlled CeeDee Lamb pretty well. I mean, you can only do so much against Lamb, but this defense really does look complete. Kayvon Chason now looks like one of the best pass rushers in college football. The corners look great. I mean, I really do think now they've answered a lot of questions, and they actually are convincingly the number 1 team in the country.
14-0 right now. Beginning of the season, August. Could you have possibly even seen this happening at all?
No, I mean, absolutely not. I mean, I could have seen, maybe this team going 11-1, maybe being in the mix for the college football playoff. I definitely thought that was possible. We all did, right? But could you have seen this being one of the teams that are really in the conversation of best teams in college football history? No. Could I have seen Joe Burrow being, one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen in a Heisman winner and the biggest landslide in history? No, I just don't think there's any way you could have ever expected a team to just be LSU of all schools, the Stone Age team, right? The one that's old school ground and pound, to be as unstoppable against the best defenses in the country. Nobody could have expected this.
All right, Brody Miller from The Athletic. Thanks, bro.
As for LSU's opponent, they'll get the other Tigers from the other Death Valley. Clemson needed all 60 minutes to get by Ohio State in their semifinal game in Arizona on Saturday night, but in the end, it was the combination of offense and defense getting the job done. Quarterback Trevor Lawrence and Louisiana's own Travis Etienne at running back put on a show in the second half, scoring the go-ahead touchdown with under 2 minutes to play. Then after Ohio State marched down the field and had plenty of time to get into the end zone, Nolan Turner brought the drive to a swift end with an interception in the end zone, keeping the defending champs' season alive. So as we get ready to turn the page to 2020, we have 3 bowl games featuring South Louisiana teams in the new year. Tulane and Southern Miss are next up on January 4th in the Armed Forces Bowl. Then on Monday the 6th, it's the Ragin' Cajuns against Miami of Ohio in the Lending Tree Bowl. And then LSU and Clemson end the year right here in New Orleans in the national championship game. LSU is currently a 6-point favorite. Coming up, don't look now, but the Pelicans are on a tear, winning 4 of their last 5. See if a home game against the Rockets tonight could provide a 4th straight victory.
Time now for your play of the week, sponsored by Ron Austin Law.
Our play of the week features the Pelicans. Yes, you heard that correct. Not only did they win a 3rd straight game on Saturday night, but in pregame warm-up, Zion Williamson went up for a dunk and threw it down, and that's the best news we've seen out of that building all year. Hopefully, he's back on the court for good and for real sooner than later. As for tonight's game, hosting the Rockets, it was a back-and-forth contest, but the Pels saved the best for the 4th quarter. Etwan Moore looking good from the corner. That puts them up 98-96. Then on the next possession, they try to get another one from the wing, but it's a bird, it's a plane, it's Drew Holiday, leading the Pels to a 4th straight win, 127-112 the final score. They've got 4 days off before the Lakers in LA on Friday. You know it's a great night when the Pelicans end it with a win. That'll do it for us on the Final Play. From everyone here at Fox 8, thanks for joining us. Our next newscast is at 4:30 in the morning.
From Fox 8 Sports, this has been The Final Play, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers, built Ford tough, and by Ron Austin Law.